Everybody, welcome today. Welcome to December. It's December 1. Wow, this year, there's a point where we have to reflect back on it, which I'm going to shift back on this year to be able to say, what's we need to do. And like anything, there's always that opportunity to be able to, so we can confirm where we want to go. So, welcome. I'm your host, Bonnie. I touched on the podcast by myself, this podcast. And part of that is it was looking at my framework, breaking it down into coming up with my clients to be able to share with you guys so that you could see one in group coaching programs. But ultimately, that this podcast and my coaching program, one of the things that I discovered this past year was really where people were opportunity to grow their business. And part of that is because marketing is not just about, and I do hair, your hair looks, which, we became very isolated, extroverted way of being able to market our business, but over into this digital marketing approach and gave them, I had to get some hot tea in me, soothe the throat, anxiety of, I don't want to, it doesn't seem to work for me. And all of these, I really looked at topic is on education, and last week, and I was traveling to go back and see my family, present with my family and just enjoy the time with them. These moments that show up when we're with our family, where our strengths lie within our family structure, parlay into where my strengths in other people's businesses, a significant other in a relationship. We kind of can play better with others when we expect others to have the same strengths that we do by things not feeling right or working out and everything. So, or sync. Okay. Because it's just have the awareness of what our strengths are, direction that we're going. And if other people are not going in that same direction, I just need to focus on me and the direction that I'm going in. Unity of how to set yourself up for the new year, of making sure that you're finding people to support you in those areas where you don't feel like. It's our topic today. Okay, so you guys have all done this, right? So we've all done them. You've done the Enneagram, the My Personality Test. I think one of the popular ones that's happened, it's very complicated, not quite as easy to understand as maybe an Enneagram. Or recently got this email where I was able to take a test, and there was a fee attached. It's a good time for me to look at that, because anything that pre-COVID, I might actually be. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this test. And it was kind of based on a leadership. Where do I fall today? Like, I know what I've been focusing on for the last within my approach. Has that ingrained as a strength for me? Because, something, you got to invest 10,000 hours into something before evolution of how you go about things. So for the last 2 years, I've been ultimately focused on being more strategic in and more focused on what my messaging is. And did this in fact help out? So when I did this Clifton strength test, it kind of rolled up to the results that I'm going to share with you today. So, but we have to think about it. It's like, what value do these things provide? So if you've done the Enneagram or the Human Design or Myers-Briggs, and your personality type of thing, what's the point of it? Because sometimes what we do is we use it as a blaming tool, like I'm this and that's why I am the way I am. Or I'm an introvert and that's why I'm not successful at this, because I'm not comfortable putting myself out there like that. And I don't want you to use any of these things that way. I want you to really look at it for yourself so that you know your strength, because no matter what, whether you're working for yourself or you're a part of a team, you have the ability to be successful no matter what your personality is, no matter what your strengths are in here. So they do provide value, but the most value that I see out of doing these type of things is to be able to have awareness. Am I on track with who I say I am? Am I in alignment with what I'm doing, what I'm saying, and the results that I'm getting? Am I in sync with my brand identity, my personal brand identity, not my business brand identity, it's my personal brand identity? Am I in sync with that in my approach of connecting with others and delivering some kind of contribution to others? Because here's what is true is when you know you and you can connect you more powerfully and confidently, you can connect better with others. So when you're more connected to yourself, you can connect better with others. The more that I know me, the more that I know my strengths to be able to help other people. I'm very clear in the type of coaching that I do. And I align with other coaches, and I refer and recommend other coaches when it comes to specific strengths that they have over what I have. So I don't claim myself, to really be a coach where I'm really going down the path with financial pieces with people. It's not my strength. It's not fun for me. Do I do a broad approach to that in the coaching? Yes, of course I have to, because numbers don't lie. And sometimes we need the numbers to be able to kind of understand where we're at to where we want to go. But I'm not going to dive into somebody's, reports, their taxes or anything like that to be able to help them to be a better business person. I then refer those type of skill sets to other coaches in the industry. Where I focus my time is in life coaching and emotional intelligence, foundation, branding, and marketing. Okay. So I know that's where my clients need most of the support. And I know that's where they need that little bit of assist in those particular areas in there. So when you can, kind of helps to build value. So I say that my brand statement for my broad brand, so my Bonnie Bonadeo brand, okay, because I have brands, sub-brands, a brand and sub-brands underneath there. So my broad Bonnie Bonadeo brand, where I kind of lead people to, and then I kind of take them on the path of, maybe you just want to listen to my podcast, you can go here. Maybe you want to be part of a coaching program, you can go here. Maybe you need support with brand marketing, website or social media, things like that, then you can go here. So I kind of have other areas that I funnel people to based on my strengths and based on what their needs are. But here's what my brand statement is connecting you to you so you can confidently connect with others. Connecting you to you so you can confidently connect with others. Okay. So the more clear you are in who you are and what you're offering and who you're offering it to, the more those people are going to show up for you, because that's going to be your directive and your messaging of how you're putting yourself out there. Okay. And then you're going to be putting your energy and your focus into those type of clients instead of trying to desperately attract clients that are maybe not within your brand identity. Okay. Now, what happens sometimes is, when we're not clear of who we are, what our values are, what drives us, what our strengths are, what contribution we have to offer, then what happens is that we get this kind of imposter syndrome. And it's real. For the most part, it's a story, but it's a real story to you. Okay. And it's a very human thing that we get this imposter syndrome. And this imposter syndrome is really designed as, we are trying to compare and compete with what we see out there on social media. And you know how damaging that is, you guys, right? Like you can learn from it. Nobody says you have to reinvent the wheel of doing something different. But when we start to see people gaining some momentum and gaining traction and looking like they're doing really well and uber successful, we start to tell ourselves that we're not good enough. We're not smart enough. We're not savvy enough. We don't know enough. We're not ever going to be able to make enough or find enough. And that word enough kind of keeps coming up, right? So enough of enough. But the worthy conversation comes up. And really why I say that the imposter syndrome is very real for all of us is because it's a story that we've been telling ourselves. And it's a story that you've been telling yourselves for a long time, not just, since you became, somebody in this industry or a salon owner or a hairdresser. It's a story that you've been telling yourself since you were a child. And it was how we coped with certain situations, circumstances, and traumas when we were young. It was modeling how we saw our parents or our people in our household cope with things when we were young. And a lot of that is just kind of transitioning into this emotional, intelligent approach to those. Those are things that shaped me, but those are things that don't have to be in front of me as I continue to move forward and evolve as a human being. But the imposter syndrome, again, is real. And I can tell you that no matter what, no matter how aware I am of it, it still exists for many of us, and me too. And, part of what we say then, this is that tagline that people say is, it's a limiting belief, so we have to stop this limiting belief that we have about who we are and how successful we can be, or how much money we can make, or, how many Instagram followers that we can get, any of these type of things. Right. And I can tell you that this year has been tough for online growth for me. Okay. So where I was typically more of a speaker, which led to coaching opportunities with my clients and led to other speaking engagements. When 2020 hit and I wasn't necessarily out there as a speaker, it reduced opportunities for me to gain coaching clients. It reduced opportunities for me to be able to have other business on my books. I wasn't disappointed by the transition, but I had to learn. I had to learn all over again how to be able to do business from a different perspective, a different point of view, a different skill set. And, my intention was always to be authentic, not make false claims or overinflated expectations or results in what I offered. But when you look at the online landscape, there's a lot of promises made, especially in like a coaching and consulting capacity. There's a lot of promises made. Like you have to keep up with the Joneses. It's because you need to hire the best copywriter in order to make claims that maybe you don't feel very connected to, or they're not stuck place of imposter syndrome or having limited beliefs kind of showing up and smacking you in the face. You got to go back to you personally and your business, and continue to keep making strides from that foundation, not from having these expectations of what other people are doing or saying, or how they're competing out there in the marketplace. And always at the end of the day, it's not about looking out and trying to measure yourself up to what's going on out there. It's about looking in and saying, what is my story? What am I telling myself? Okay. How can I better educate my mindset to where I'm feeling valued, worthy, and confident to continue to keep moving forward at my pace and with what my strength, my business. And then, of course, at that point, then it becomes a very, very strategic marketing angle of good messaging so that people know who you are, what you offer, and who you're offering it to. And then, of course, really good marketing messaging of being consistent. Can't just say it once or twice. You got to keep repeating it, keep repeating it, keep repeating it. And I see that that's really probably the biggest challenge for a lot of my clients is they'll get a good idea and they'll push it out, but the good ideas need to come on a more consistent basis, and they need to be pushing it out on a more consistent basis. And so going into 2022, my big focus is going to be in marketing and branding and helping you understand the campaign momentum that happens. And really to be able to say, I don't have a lot of time I want to spend on this, but I need to spend time planning it. Okay. Planning, producing, and promoting. And when you kind of get, it's like muscle, building a new muscle. Okay. And creating that muscle memory, when you start to see the impact that it has and how you are marketing your brand and how you're branding, yourself and your business, then you start to see that uptick. Okay. And the results are not always immediate. The results can be measured if you go a little bit further into some offer where people have to connect with you, or you're buying an advertising and you can look at your ad results. Okay. You can look at all the analytics of your ad results. All of those can be measurable pieces. But if you're doing something that's just from an organic standpoint right now, then organic is really, really tied to consistency. Not even quantity or even quality. And I think that's the part that people get really caught up in, is that I have to be doing something 3 or 4 times a day, or it's got to be perfect before I put it out there. Okay. So consistency isn't always measured against quantity and quality. Okay. But consistency in itself still has to happen. And I honestly see that's where the big gray area is for people. Because we lose a little bit of that momentum when we think we have nothing to say, we have nothing to offer, we have nothing to promote. And we always sometimes think that it has to be in the under the guise of real promotion, like price off or discounts or things like that, versus just sharing something authentically. So when I did this Clifton strength test, this is what came up as my top 5. All right. So number 1 was being strategic. So I was really under this strategic, and let me tell you, there was 34 different areas of opportunity in this. So my top 5 were these here, being strategic, allowing for input, being an achiever, communication, and connection. Those were my top 5. And I was excited to see the design of this over what has happened in the past, because in the past, I think connection and communication and achiever were always kind of my top 3. And then strategic and input were kind of down at the bottom. But these are the things that I changed over the last couple of years. So I was excited to see a little bit of that expertise rolling to the top based on what I've been focusing on and how I've been driving my business over the last couple of years. So, strategic obviously is where you're putting some planning and thought to what you're doing. Input is creating that opportunity to gain input from people so that you can alter, shift certain things to accommodate other people. Achiever, obviously I've always been an achiever in that. And then of course, communications and connection, I feel are like so deeply embedded into me. Like my goal is to be a really effective communicator. And my goal to be an effective communicator is going to allow me to be able to connect to the right type of audience that I'm aiming for. And I can see that over the last 2 years, my connection off, and part of it is being, and that online little inside and outside of my values. Okay. Like there's this expectation. And I saw this on a post the other day in one of the groups that I'm in. She's like, I'm just not that interested in sharing my personal life with people in order to gain business. Like I understand storytelling and, and making situations in my life that become relevant to share in my business, but I'm not going to put my personal life out for the world to see in order to kind of be in this design of how social media is supposed to work. And I totally get that, and that's where this imposter syndrome starts to set in. It's like, but everybody else is sharing themselves. So why don't I want to share myself? Well, I'm not that good. I can't do it as well. I don't have that much to talk about, but again, it goes back to your values and how you're driving that foundational piece of who you are that's connected to what you're trying to achieve for who. Okay. So you guys know that I always am about the framework that I do here. So when I looked at my top 5 things, strategic, input, achiever, communication, and connection, I tied it back to the framework that I share in my coaching program and in this podcast every week. And I look at it from, like the strategic part is really the sales and marketing pieces. Okay. The input is, education and operations. Right. The achiever part of me is, partly measuring the results, again, going back to operations, but also the achiever part of me is a mindset. If I don't achieve, I feel as though I did something wrong. I'm not good enough. And then all of a sudden I can spiral down that rabbit hole in regards to that. So the achiever piece for me sets in mindset. And then of course, communication and connectiveness falls all the way around in all of those areas, because those again are part of my core foundations of always achieving the kind of success that I want in here. So what are your strengths? What are your strengths? Like, do you know, like if you did an Enneagram, what is it telling you? Or human design, what is it telling you? The Myers-Briggs, what is it telling you? Okay. And because some of those things have been around for a long time, it's interesting that they may not necessarily parlay into what we're doing. So one of the things that I did was just kind of do a very basic approach to, kind of where the focus is. And this survey that I have available for you, and I'll share the link for you guys in the end, is looking at it from a point of, in the sales operation, mindset, marketing, and education, what are my strengths and weaknesses within those areas? Okay. And then if you work with me in one of my group programs or one of my one-on-one programs, we really dive into a little bit more of your personal values, your strengths and weaknesses in regards to that coaching program, so that you can kind of get more familiar with who you are. Okay. What really you're offering. And I'm not talking about, you're offering a salon to have your hair done in, or if you're a stylist, you're not offering the best balayage in town. What are you really offering? Okay. And it goes back to a very values-driven approach in there. Okay. Now, what was really interesting for me is that, and I understand this from an emotional intelligence standpoint, but thoughts lead to action. So when you have awareness of something and you put thought into it, okay, like me looking at these 34 strengths in here. So the very last one, number 34, that I had like very, very little connection with whatsoever, is developer. And the one that scared me the most, though, in this was number 33, was consistency. And that's my lifelong challenge. So I just shared with you guys that consistency is one of the most powerful things that you can do in order to grow your business. And it's one of the hardest things for me to do. Okay. Because I'm way more about ideas and innovation, and opportunities and focus and problem solving. But the consistency piece in there is definitely the part that I have to continue to work on. It has to be a focus for me going into 2022. Okay. And it ties into how I'm executing things, how I'm influencing things, the relationships that I'm building in things, and then of course, strategic thinking of how to put all of those things together in there. But thoughts lead to action, but thoughts can also lead to this imposter syndrome that we're talking about. And you have to then think, what is my contribution? Because if I'm clear on the awareness of my contribution, and I stay in that lane, and I'm consistent enough in that lane, am I going to make the impact that I need? Okay. Now, what was really interesting for me was number 6. So number 6 on my chart here was woo. And I'm like, okay, what the hell is woo, right? I mean, we hear the expression woo woo, and oh, he wooed her. So I kind of had a basic understanding of it. And so I thought I really kind of need to understand what this is here, because, you know, what I understand woo to be is an innovative approach or style to things, the connectiveness that I'm aiming for with people, the ability to be a storyteller in this. And of course, then using stories to solve problems. So I thought, well, maybe that's kind of where my woo sits in here. So, but I can tell you, I'm not being my full brand without woo, and I'm syncing without woo. So I had to really then kind of like define, what is woo? And the definition of woo is to gain love, affection, and support. Okay. Now, pre-2020, so before COVID, before we got shut down and had to alter our lives, it was easy for me to do this because I was in a circuit of having this be a consistent and constant action, you know, being present, gaining love and affection and support. And then it would ultimately result in business and clients would then kind of cycle through and refer me to other people. And when everything shut down, I thought, okay, so I got to get my woo on here. You know, I can be as strategic as I want. I can ask for input from the best. I can be, you know, a driven, achieving type of person. I can communicate till assume I'm connected to my ideal clients or my particular market. But without woo, it falls flat. So I was more interested in what my 6 through 10 were, because I'm clear on my strengths and I know how to use them and I can be consistent using them. It was 6 through 10 that I really had to look and evaluate what was going on with this. Okay. And 6 through 10 is woo, intellect, focus, positivity, and includer. And I thought, well, there it is. That just said it all for me. That was all of what the last 2 years represented, or I was challenged by, is woo, intellect, focus, positivity, and creating inclusion, including more people in it. And it really opened up a big part of it. Now, one of the things that I also looked at was the expression when we say woo woo. So, and here's how this is defined. You know, the woo woo, oh, she's very woo woo, is relating and holding on to kind of unconventional beliefs, sometimes with little or no scientific basis, and especially those related to spirituality or mysticism or alternative approaches to things. So I have a wide group of friends that are very much in the woo-woo world. And because my strengths of being strategic, an input, achiever, a communication person, I've always kind of sidebarred the value of my woo-woo friends, and felt as though I couldn't play in the same, sandbox with them in a sense. But I then discovered that that's really more in alignment with me, because it's a growing piece for me. And that's kind of where I'm going into 2022. So let's talk about 2022. We're going to start planning for 2022. And I've got a couple of programs that I'm launching and a couple of programs that I'm going to be repeating in 2022. So I hope that you guys will, stay tuned for that or participate in that. I've reduced them by timelines. I've reduced some of them by price so that I can get more people in them, because my goal is really to help more people. Okay. I got very strategic this past year and a half in order to hone in on what I call beta testing the waters, seeing if the actions that people were taking based on how I was teaching and training them were actually effective and working. And they were. So now I want to be able to broaden and open up the opportunity for more people to play in the sandbox with me, and get a feel of it. Now, the more that I can get into these types of programs and at a fair price, the more opportunities that you guys have as a chance to then be able to say, if you need to do more, the opportunity to do more is always there. So these are kind of like taste tester approaches to things in here. But for what we're going to do for the rest of 2021 at this point is we're really going to look at debriefing and doing an audit on our business for the rest of the year. So I do these podcasts every Wednesday. They get pushed out every Wednesday afternoon at the latest, early evening, after they're completed. I'm going to go live on these next 3 podcasts, and we're going to really look at the 2021 debrief and audit of our business. And there's going to be a workbook that's going to be attached that you'll be able to download and play along with me. So we've got, I think it's 3 more podcasts before we end the year. And so I'm going to look at my calendar real quick here. All right. So we've got, yes, we actually have four Wednesday sessions. So I'm going to put it out there with you guys, and I'm going to let you know. So it'll be the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. And we're going to dive back into the framework of what we've accomplished this year and what we want to accomplish moving into next year. Okay. But we got to be able to look and see where we're at and what we've done in order to say where, this is where we want to go. So stay tuned with me. Now, if you want to participate in these live group sessions, and you got to join my Facebook group, because that's where it's going to go live. And the Facebook group is the SOS Small Biz group. And that SOS Small Biz group, it actually has my name on the back end of it. So go to Facebook groups, and then go to SOS Small Biz group, Bonnie Bonadeo, and then join the group. Okay. And that's where we're going to go live to be able to do a debrief. And I'll be able to share with you then how to be able to download the workbook so that you can kind of evaluate your 2021 and then start putting some goals together for 2022. Kind of an informal program that I'm doing here. All right. Now, if you want to find out where you fit into the survey that I've done, the little test that I did with where are you at with sales, operations, mindset, marketing, and education, which area, you can go to SOSsalonsurvey.com and do the survey. And then I'll get a notification that you did the survey, and I'll send it back to you with some results and share with you how we can work together, and some things that you can do, even if we don't work together, some things that you can do in order to up-level your next 2022. Okay, so here's the Thrive Over Survive program. It's going to be a 6-week program instead of a 12-week program, price of $497. So excited to have you guys be a part of that program as well. And there'll be more coming out. But do the survey first, just to be able to kind of see where your strengths and weaknesses lie. And then, jump into the podcast with me for the rest of this year in my group, Facebook group, SOS Salon Biz. And I look forward to sharing more with you guys. So you can go to salonsurvey.com to do that. And I'll see you next Wednesday in the group as we kind of do our little debrief of 2021 and our audit and planning for 2022. All right, guys. Hey, listen, you always have an opportunity to get a free strategy session with me. So if you do the Salon Survey program, the Salon Survey, I will offer you an opportunity to set up a free call with me so that we can discuss it a little bit more and find out what else is going on in your business and how I can help with that. Look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. and for the debrief and the audit and planning for 2022.